Hello and welcome back to coverage here at GP Richmond. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe, and we are covering Reed Duke versus Lucien Longuet. And they're both sitting at 8-1 lands for Lucien, and that means that Reed has what he figures to be his worst matchup, or at least one of the worst matchups that he has. So let's head down to the table. Again, the idea here is you're sitting right next to Reed Duke, and you get to watch him play this match as if you were sitting right at the table. I'm going to be pretty much getting out of the way. I'll be adding a few things here and there, but for the most part, we'll let the action on the table dictate how this goes. Enjoy. Boy, those sleeves from Lucien really got me. I thought, boy, you should turn your hand over. You can see that swamp, but looks like they're all swamps there.
Your turn. Results. Kabak?
Yep. This is going to be bad news for Duke because he's going to now have figured out, okay, I'm
thinking about that one.
The land stack. It's expiration for Lucien.
Force of Will, 18.
Reed's going to force a will expiration. What he can do.
Go ahead.
But if Wasteland is going to take care of Undergrounds. Thespian Stage is a play for Lucien. He only has Mox Diamond and Thespian Stage.
Go.
Would have been a fine opportunity for Life from Below, but it seems like he doesn't have one.
Go.
Pair of Thespian Stage now for Lucien. Ooh, there's the big hitter, Dark Depths. And Reed is already facing down a formidable threat, and you can see he's going to take a pause here. This is, well, he wasn't kidding when he said this is a tough matchup.
Brainstorm. How many cards do you have?
I have 4.
Upkeep, I'm going to fetch 17.
So end step Brainstorm, put 2 back, upkeep, sacrifice Bloated Delta. One of the few answers that Reed has is Diabolic Edict to a card like Merit Lage. He also has Jace the Mind Sculptor. The problem with that is Lucien can play around it.
1 through 4.
Sure. All right, him to Turok. Reed obviously always rolling too high. This is too good.
3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Punishing Fire, Maze of Ith. Your turn.
See some of the strength of this land stack. Punishing Fire in the graveyard's a fine place for it. Lucien's just taking a look at her. Do we go for it?
We'll do the Edict check.
Okay, so
Copy the Dark Depths.
that's fine.
He's going for it.
Legend rule that one, then that one dies. You get a 20/20, and I die. Good game.
And that's going to be it. Reed says, yep, I'm done. I don't have Diabolic Edict, and game 1 quickly goes to Lucien. That did not look difficult. Reed is going to be quite happy to consult his sideboard here.
Always expect the Edict. It's just a surprise when they don't have it.
let's take a listen to what Reed thinks of the sideboarding for Lands.
3 Surgical Extraction, 2 Pyroblast, 2 Flusterstorm, a Marsh Casualties, Toxic Deluge, Liliana the Last Hope, Ensnaring Bridge, Blue Elemental Blast, Hydra Blast, Red Elemental Blast, and Pithing Needle. That's the sideboard. Here's the matchup. It's lands. Reed, what are you doing?
Well, mostly I'm taking out my bad cards because lands employs such an unusual strategy, plays so much out of the graveyard that a lot of the normal Grixis reactive cards do almost nothing. Hymn to Turok, for example, way too slow, not going to knock anything relevant out of their hand once you get to turn 3, 4, 5. And the creature removal is also pretty bad, although you do have to worry a little bit about them bringing in Tireless Tracker.
So you've got 7 cards coming in, 7 cards going out. That sounds like a lot, and that sounds very promising. But you're saying that this matchup is pretty bad in general. Is it still kind of bad afterboarding?
It gets a lot better. If I'm being optimistic, maybe I'm 50-50 to win the post-sideboard games, although I usually lose game 1. But Surgical Extraction, that is the most important card in the matchup, as you can nab their Life from the Loam, sometimes their Punishing Fire, sometimes combo to get rid of half of their Merit Lage combo. So Surgical Extraction is a hyper-efficient card that does change the dynamic a bit before and after sideboard.
Just to recap, by the way, what happened at the end of that game, it kind of happened quickly. But one of the main combos that Lucien has in his land stack is a combo of Thespian Stage and Dark Depths. Dark Depths has the ability to become a 2020 flying indestructible called Merit Lage, but you have to remove 10 counters at a glacially slow pace. Thespian Stage, though, can actually copy it. And if you copy it, once it becomes a copy of Dark Depths with no counters on it, which you can then just turn into the 2020. So as long as you have Thespian Stage and Dark Depths, you can pay 2 mana tap Thespian Stage to have a copy of Dark Depths with no counters on it. You do lose one to the Legend pool, but the other one gets sacrificed and turns into a 2020. And in this case, Reed did not have one of his only main deck answers for it, Diabolic Edict, and it would have swung in for 20 had Reed not recognized that and said, okay, I'm done here. All right, let's listen to what Reed has about bad matchups.
Here's Reed on bad matchups. Reed, I think everyone understands what they think the phrase bad matchup means. What does bad matchup mean to you?
To me, bad matchup means something where my normal game plan is not going to work. For whatever reason, my opponent has the trump, or they're invulnerable to certain aspects of my strategy, and I have to find a different way.
How willing are you to play a deck where you know that it has several very bad matchups?
I'm willing. Generally, if all things are equal, I tend to choose a deck that has, that's well-rounded and that can find a way against a lot of different decks. But in a format as diverse as Legacy, with 40, 50, 60 different archetypes that we're expecting to see over the course of the weekend, you better believe that you're not going to have a good matchup against all of them. So being able to play and navigate through those sort of unfortunate, unlikable situations is just part of the format.
Okay, do you, as one of the best players in the world, don't blush, add the words after bad matchup, brackets, assuming that my opponent is as good as I am, close brackets? Because one thing, I spend a lot of my time around you and the pro community, and your testing is generally done against people who are uniformly excellent, right? Everyone you test with on your team is a phenomenal player. Most of us aren't like that. So do you take comfort when you see a, quote, bad matchup, that the chances of a typical opponent playing it utterly optimally and not giving you a little window are actually quite low?
Well, it's certainly true that if my opponent has a deck advantage, I can try my hardest to counteract that with a skill or experience advantage. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things that makes it fun. You sort of level the playing field by having a handicap. You practice under tough circumstances so that you can have a 50-50 chance when those tough circumstances come up in the tournament. But I guess to get to the root of your question, it depends on the type of matchup, and I can give you 2 examples. One bad matchup for my Grixis deck is Mono Red Prison. And that's a matchup where I don't feel really like I'm going to outplay my opponents. They're going to do the most powerful thing they can on turn 1, and it's either going to beat me or not. So there's not that much wiggle room there. But a different example would be Elves, which is one of my long-term pet decks in Legacy 1 that I love to play. I would be pretty happy playing the Elves side of Elves against Grixis, but I think it's a really challenging matchup. And if I have to play the Grixis side of it, I'm not necessarily scared to do that either. So whatever the percentages are for 2 elite players playing that matchup, I'm pretty happy to play it on either side because it's a complicated, challenging matchup.
All right, we're back to live coverage here. Got a little chance to hear from Reed Duke there in between, but in the meantime, this game is underway. Reed mulliganed to 6, which isn't a shocking thing. Remember, Reed doesn't feel like this is a great matchup, but he does feel like he has at least some sideboard cards that could give him a chance, and it's not surprising to see him try to mulligan into those sideboard cards that he's going to bring in. Right now, though, he's already got his hands full. He played a Ponder, didn't yield him much, and his Volcanic Island got
Surgical Extraction
wasted.
your Dark Depths.
He's also facing down a Molten Vortex right now out of the sideboard from Lucien. But a big play here from Reed. He is taking away at least one of Lucien's ways to win the game. We saw it at the end of game 1. Dark Depths is now getting Surgical Extraction. So Surgical is going to exile the one from the graveyard and any other ones that Lucien has in his hand or library. So that avenue to victory will be gone. Lucien discarded the Dark Depths to his Mox Diamond last turn, so it did expose it to a card like Surgical. But as Reed is well aware, and of course is looking right now, there are other ways for Lucien to win the game besides Dark Depths. That's just the way that you win the game and just go, well, it's over right now. And Molten Vortex is one of them. Molten Vortex is red for an enchantment. You can pay red and discard a land card to do 2 damage to a creature or player. So Lucien, if he gets his engine rolling, he can basically just start going through those over and over again using.
So how about I'll let you shuffle, I'll get the final cut?
Sure. And Life from the Loam, as you can see, is in his hand as
life.
Well. It's that card on the far right. So if Lucien can get this thing going, Molten Vortex could be a major issue for Reed. Right now it's not, though.
Were you good with the hand?
Yeah, thanks.
Pair of Crows and Grips in hand from Lucien doesn't look super good right now. Especially when you look at Reed's hand and see that there's no targets for it. Of course, the downside for Reed right now, no more lands.
Thank you.
That's big, though, for Lucien. Now he goes and gets a Taiga, and that's going to allow him to start using Life from the Loam to get back Wasteland. Reed Duke, he has 3 basic lands in his whole list.
Results.
Now, if Reed could find a way to get rid of Life from the Loam, perhaps with another copy of Surgical Extraction here,
Pass turn.
that could be huge, but that's not what he has. If left uninterrupted, Lucien will not be missing land drops for the rest of the game. Reed really needs to find some lands here,
Pass turn.
and he can't.
Shelter pick.
Damage. 16.
Lucien comes from Atlanta. And he's a legacy grinder, so this is kind of his thing. All right, now the engine is properly rolling. This is Life from the Loam. He's using the dredge ability to get it back into his hand, but of course that also mills him. And that puts more lands in the graveyard, and next thing you know, you get to do this over and over again. And once he hits critical mass, we'll start seeing him throw cards at Reed using Molten Vortex. And it's going to be very difficult for Reed to overcome this at this point. Ponder might help. But boy, looking at it, you can certainly get a feel for how anemic some of the cards are that Reed plays. Baleful Strix has been very good for him this tournament. Looks really bad against Lucien.
17.
Yep.
And here we go. He's going to start going upstairs with the Molten Vortex.
2 damage.
He's got him down to 12.
12.
Dredge. Stage. Travis Tracker. Cast Life from the Loam.
I also see a Horizon Canopy
Horizon
in there as
Canopy.
well, which can
Misty Rainforest Wasteland.
turbo things out even further. We got Misty Rainforest, Wasteland, Horizon Canopy.
Ponder.
I think we might have to shuffle with that one unless the Pithy Needle is enough. The problem is that having looked at Lucien's hand earlier, he saw 2 copies of Croson Grip, which he cannot interact with and which kill a Pithy Needle. Otherwise, it would be nice to shut off the Molten Vortex.
How many cards do you have?
Now, from
6
a big
cards.
picture perspective, Reed needs 13 and 2 to be his final record in order to overtake Seth Manfield for
Draw
player.
for Ponder.
If he picks up his second loss here, he will be up against the ropes. Now, the other thing to note, though, is that if he does get to
Go
that
ahead.
13 and 2, he will be in the top 8. And there's even a chance for
I'm at 10.
a 12 and 3 potentially to sneak into the top 8 at this tournament.
Gamble.
If I call it likely,
Provocation.
but
Wasteland.
it's not impossible. And if Reed can get 12 and 3 but also make the top 8, then that still leaves him the window to pick up enough points to not just tie Seth, which is what X and 3 does, but to surpass him.
Wasteland your underground suit.
Make a black mana.
Go to combat.
9.
So I think we're going to see Reed go for Snapcaster Mage on his Surgical Extraction here now. Nope, looks like I'm wrong. Yeah, no, there's no point in that anyway. The Life from the Loam is in hand currently.
Okay. Proceed.
So let's go for something else. Let's see what he does.
Life from the Loam. Misty Rainforest your Wasteland.
Misty Rainforest and 1 Wasteland?
2
Oh,
Wasteland.
yeah, that's fine.
There's that Life from the Loam. But right now, Lucien
Pass
already
turn.
used
I have 7.
his wasteland.
Standard print pre-player.
This does open the door for Snapcaster.
Active player finish your turn. Proceed to the additional 5 turns.
Problem is,
If you do
it's
not
probably too late.
Seven.
please raise your hand and call for one now.
It's going to be
Once again,
7.
standard Grand Prix players. That is time in round 2.
Dredge. Wasteland, Forest, Gamble. Wasteland,
Make it black.
Code Combat. Target.
And there's a
Surgical
Snapcaster.
extraction.
He's going to target
Continue.
surgical.
That's on the stack.
Okay, sure.
So Lucien says, okay, the target ability from Snapcaster's on the stack. How in the world does Reed get out of this?
That's fine. Life removal. Targeting Wasteland, Forest, Misty Rainforest.
Okay.
All right. Looks like the ability resolved, but Lucien got priority again. He's got a full grip thanks to Life from the Loam, the most important card for him. I think he's just going to start
2 damage.
throwing damage. at
5.
Reed. It's down to 5.
Last turn.
I'll go to 3 and surgical extraction, life from the loam.
So Reed is going to go ahead and surgical extraction, but that costs him an additional 2 life, knocking him down to 3. And with Molten Vortex on the battlefield and a whole grip full of lands for Lucien, it seems like it's
Deck checks team to the main event stage. please.
Foregone
Standard
conclusion.
deck checks team to the main event stage, please.
Rising Canopy. Dredge.
Okay.
He's also going to use a pretty cool trick there. He's going to draw a card with Horizon Canopy, which allows the Dredge ability to happen.
You
Dredge
this
says
card.
he gets the card back in his hand, and therefore it's no longer a valid target
If you have
for surgical extraction. But that was a desperation move by Reed in any scenario. And I think he's going to just scoop him up here.
Molten Vortex.
Now, he's going to play the Pithy Needle, which will shut down the Molten
15?
Vortex for the time being.
Go.
But again, we know that Lucien has the ability to deal with it with this Crossing Grip right here.
Good games.
And that's going to be the game. 4 damage to Reed Duke. He did say it was one of his worst matchups, and I got to say, after having watched it, I can see why.
Thanks.
Big formats like Legacy, you kind of have to pick what types of decks and strategies you want to be able to interact with. And Reed did not pick lands. As you can see, that was quite a beating there. Lucien quite easily winning that match 2-0. And again, Reed, you know, he even said post-sideboard, it's not like he feels like he has a bunch of silver bullets that can just get the job done. It's one of those things where he really just sort of needs things to go his way, and that's going to be pretty tough. So he does pick up his second loss, but as I mentioned during the course of the match there, that does not eliminate him from top 8 contention, nor does it eliminate him from the Player of the Year contention as well. So it's not great, right? You pick up your second loss. He doesn't really have much wiggle room, probably. But I can tell you that as we get closer to the top 8 cut, we'll have a better idea for what kind of record we expect to need. Normally out at a GP, 2 losses is about your maximum. Maybe 2 losses and a draw might get you in. But here, it might be 3. It would not be impossible, given the size of the field, that somebody with an X3 record comes in to the top 8. Now, if that happens to be Reed, then that would open up the door for him not to just tie Seth Manfield, but to actually surpass him again for this. Also of note, by the way, both Luis Salvato and Seth Manfield picked up their 3rd loss coming into this round. So they're already up against it with 3 losses, and Reed is now 1 match win clear of both of those players. Again, to break it down for you, Seth Manfield has 79 pro points, Reed Duke has 78, and Luis Salvato has 77. But there's a wrinkle, because the way that it works is the players get all of their pro points from any Pro Tour performance, and they also get the top 6 finishes from their Grand Prix for this Player of the Year race. So what that means is if your best is like a win, that's 8 pro points, but your worst is an X and 5, that's 1 pro point, you can replace those ones, but they get replaced. So for Reed, it's actually a pretty high bar because he's done really well at the GPs. Luis Salvato won the Pro Tour, so he got a huge bonus from that, ton of pro points, and now he has a lot of slots down at the bottom that have a lot of wiggle room. So if he were to run it up, he could do it. But it looks like it's going to be a little tougher for him. But he does have still a hope there. All right, we're going to take a short commercial break. When we come back, we'll have more magic here from Richmond. See you in a bit.